Therese Longo is with us today. Therese is Vice President of Operations at Radcom. She is a certified performance thinking practitioner and has more than 20 years of experience in the world of performance improvement and instructional design. She leads Radcom's project teams, helping to produce customized analyses, documentation, training, and other initiatives to help clients improve the performance of their people. Therese is truly passionate about her performance improvement and loves sharing that passion and knowledge with others, especially those who want to build performance culture in their organization and ultimately drive business results. So thank you for joining us today, Therese. I am excited about today as well. And before we get started, I want to let you know that we do have a kind of a surprise for those at the end for you guys who stick around. It's a value of about $1,000. So stick around to the end and we'll tell you more about that as we get there. Again, please use that chat and we will jump in and get started. So Therese, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Matt. Welcome everybody. This is Goodbye Job Description, Hello Performance Profile, and I'm super excited to be here to talk about it. If you didn't download the handout, you can use the QR code, and I think should be in the chat as well. There'll be other opportunities when we get further along, but you'll want that when we do this scenario and do some breakout rooms. So please go ahead and download that. So as Matt said, I've been doing instructional design for quite some time, and I love it. It's a great field. But about 5 years ago, I started to become more and more frustrated with that all too common request that I need a course on X, you fill in the blank. And if you're an instructional designer, you probably can relate to what I'm saying. And it's not that I have an issue with that request per se, but typically it's a request that isn't backed by an analysis, and clients don't want to do analysis. So what happens is, we don't really know if the training is needed or if it's going to be effective. And so my team and I, we were cranking out course after course. And although, we had a lot of happy clients, I knew we weren't solving the real problems, and I felt like something was missing. So in the summer of 2019, after I'd read a couple books on performance improvement, I was able to join this local HPT, and that's Human Performance Technology, book club. And I remember walking into that library for the first time and so excited to meet new people and to learn. I felt like a kindergartner on their first day of school. And by the end of that meeting, I knew I had found my people. And one of the first things that I learned from these new HPT mentors was that as a leader or manager, it's my responsibility to provide the best conditions for my employees to be successful. And to do that, using a good performance improvement model is helpful. So I took that advice to heart and have been extremely passionate, maybe a little obsessed, some might say, about creating a performance culture at Radcom and the organizations that we work with. The performance profile is a tool that's evolved out of that work, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So recently I saw this infographic in a TD magazine, that's Talent Development, ATD's publication, and it said that only 39% of employees, their take-home pay isn't enough to cover their basic needs. Only 1/3 have had opportunities for promotions or advancement. And only 32% have access to training or education assistance. And I know these are just 3 of many statistics that I could have shown today, because there are many issues that we're facing in today's workplace. But if managers and leaders are responsible for creating the right work conditions, then these statistics suggest that we're not doing a very good job. But on the other hand, meeting all of these needs as leaders and managers, HR, learning and development, it can be really hard and frustrating. So I'd like you to meet Maggie. Maggie's a manager at a growing organization with a department that's going through a lot of changes. She just onboarded a couple of new employees, but she's realizing that they're not getting up to speed quite fast enough. A few of her employees are not performing to their potential, and there are several others that are pushing for career development opportunities. She has one that's making so many errors it's costing the department time and money. Now, she knows she should be doing more coaching, but she doesn't have a good model, and it's harder to really observe the performance of her people now that most of them are remote. She feels pulled in many directions and isn't sure how to solve any of these problems. She desperately wants a team that is performing at its best and engaged in the work that they are doing. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but I know I've seen it in our clients, and I'm guessing it's probably a pretty common scenario. And I just feel that we need to make it easier for managers to solve these common issues. And I think the first step to doing that is really identifying the causes. And typically that means doing an analysis. But many clients, as I said earlier, want to just jump to solutions before looking at the root causes. And we see this all the time in training, right? But it isn't always training. Last year at RADCOM, we had a local manufacturing company contact us to have us update their work instructions. And they said that the problem was that the employees were not following the work instructions. And they went ahead and made an assumption that it was bad work instructions that made them not want to read them. So I asked a really important question. I said, can any of the employees, or can they produce the product to standard without using the work instruction? And when he answered yes, I knew there were probably other performance issues at play here. And so we suggested doing a performance analysis first. And when they agreed to do it, surprisingly, right, we explained that we define performance using accomplishments or outputs instead of behavior. And this is a big shift in the focus, but it really is a game changer. And it has been at RADCOM, most definitely. And I'm not saying that behavior isn't important. It is, because it's what leads to producing these important work outputs. But by focusing on the output, we can more clearly define and evaluate performance. And once we clearly define that performance, then we can identify what is needed to support exemplary performance. And this is really, really important. And I love this quote by Tom Gilbert, because I think it really sums up why it's so important to shift the focus. And it says, the result of behavior is what is valuable. And it's so true. People can do things all day long, but if they're not producing something at the end of the day, it's not helping the organization. If you're not familiar with Tom Gilbert, he's considered the founder of human performance technology, and he's written an amazing book called Human Competence. If you're interested in this topic, I suggest you check it out. So let's talk about outputs. What is an output? An output is the product of behavior. And I really like Carl Binder's definition. He says an output is a noun or noun phrase. It's something that's countable. You can use a, an, or the before it. It's meaningful as a plural noun. And of course, valuable contribution to the organization. So the performance profile that we're going to get to shortly is based on outputs. So shifting from behavior to outputs is really important, but it can be challenging at first. And so I want to do a quick fun exercise with you to give you some practice distinguishing between behavior and output. I'm going to give you a phrase or a noun, and I want you to put in chat whether you think it's an output or behavior. And we're just going to do a few of these real quick. The first one, plane ready for takeoff. So go ahead and use your chat and let me know what you think. Is this an output or a behavior? I see output, output, output. Excellent. Anyone think behavior? See a lot of outputs. Anyone going for behavior? All right. You're right, output. All right, next one, assemble the parts. Output or behavior? Behavior. See a lot of behaviors, right? Right, so we have assemble as a verb. That's going to tell us that this is a behavior. Next one, hiring decision. Output or behavior? See output, a lot of outputs. Okay. You're right, it's an output. And one last one, you guys are doing great. Placing letters into envelopes. Behavior, behavior. Right. Excellent. You guys did a great job. So the name of this webinar is Goodbye Job Description, Hello Performance Profile. And you can see on the screen here an example of a job description. We're all familiar with them. We use them for recruiting, determining salary levels, performance reviews, and it's supposed to really give us a clear and concise resource for job performance. But my experience is that many times job descriptions are often incomplete, out of date, because they're hard to keep up with when jobs change, and not always concise when defining performance. So we recently have been working with clients to create job descriptions that are output based. And that's how we've gotten to this performance profile. And we've been doing a lot of work internally as well, shifting from traditional job descriptions to the performance profile. And, you know, what's in the performance profile isn't necessarily new. It definitely draws on the work from Gilbert and Binder and Harless and Rumler. These are all names of prominent people in the HPT world. But what I love about it, it's a really concise way, a very easily formatted so that you can get everything you need all in one place. It's typically, 1 to 2 pages and in an easy to use format. So now's the time, if you don't have the handout, you want to make sure you have that. We're going to be looking more closely at the performance profile and the role overview. So the role overview, when we're doing a job description, is what precedes the performance profile. And it usually includes some of the things that you're used to seeing in a job description, with education, experience, maybe some of the certifications that are needed, software, so on and so forth. But where it differs is at the bottom, where you might typically see the behavior, the responsibilities, the competencies that someone needs to do the job. We've replaced that with just the outputs that that person needs to produce. And so then once we've identified the outputs that they need to produce, then we follow that with a performance profile that includes all the information we need to define the performance. And so this makes it really easy when jobs change, just to add or remove a performance profile of an output very easily, instead of having to redo a whole job description or anything like that. So let's take a minute here and look at the performance profile and see what's involved here. So the top part of the performance profile is where we really define the performance. So this is an example of a design document as the output. Underneath there, you're going to have the standard. So how do we know we have a good one? Next, we have the difficulty. We want to know how difficult this output is to produce. And we use that when we're using this for career pathing, or maybe even coaching, or determining what outputs to put in a job. Next, we have the measures and the business results. So we want to know what the impact is that this has on the organization. And then we include the processes. How does the work get done? In some cases, we might have links to SOPs or work instructions that define those processes more clearly. And then we want to have the interaction. So who and what do you need to interact with when you're producing this? And then finally, the key behaviors. So the key tasks and the best practices, right? So how do we get it done? And this section defines the performance for us. Because once we've defined the performance, then we want to look at the environment and the individual, the skills and knowledge, to determine what is needed to create the best performance system and create the support that people need to do their best work. And so the environment, we're going to be looking at how are expectations set, how is feedback provided, what tools and resources do they need, and what incentives are in place. And then for the individual, what does the individual bring to the job? And this might be certain characteristics, certain experience. If you're using any sort of assessments, you might include stuff about Colby or DISC, something like that, if that's important to your organization. And then we have the skills and knowledge, right? What skills and knowledge do they need, and how do they get that? And that gain through, we can use to insert links to the LMS in order to provide resources for people to gain those skills and knowledge. And that becomes really important, when we're doing career pathing or even coaching. But then also during the process of filling in this section of the performance profile, what's nice is that you're also, some companies might not have the best feedback system in place. So you're through the questioning and through doing this, you're going to be identifying ways for them to improve. And so I have found on some of the projects that I've worked on that out of this process comes a nice recommendations list for helping them build the best performance system for their people. So I want to jump into a scenario and give you all a opportunity to practice filling in a performance profile. So the scenario is you're a kitchen manager at a diner. You have a line cook job description that you're transitioning to a performance profile. You have identified the outputs and now need to define the performance for each output. You've selected the grilled cheese sandwich as the first output. And that's the one that we're going to work with now through filling in some of the sections of the performance profile. If you have the handout, you'll see page 3 has the performance profile for the grilled cheese sandwich. Most of it's filled in, and then the sections that are not filled in, we're going to do together and in breakout rooms. So let's get started. The first one is standards. So the output obviously is a grilled cheese sandwich. I've given you the first one as an example. The bread is golden brown. So go ahead and use your chat and just throw out ideas on what might be some other standards that you would have if you were making a grilled cheese sandwich. Cheese is melted. Bread is buttered. Not burned. Exactly. Anything else? Cheese is centered on the bread, right? We don't want a bunch of cheese on the outside of the bread after you've grilled it. Served warm, not cold. Excellent. Customers happy with the sandwich. Yeah, good feedback. Neatly stacked. Excellent. Excellent. You guys got it. So some crunchy texture to the outside and soft on the inside. Absolutely. Nice job. Next, let's look at the key tasks. So what are the things that the line cook needs to do in order to prepare the grilled cheese? Go ahead. We'll continue to use chat for this. Get the skillet ready. Butter the bread evenly. Select good slices of bread. Make sure the pan is hot. Place cheese centered on the bread. Peel off cheese. Ingredients I'm glad Debbie said ingredients gathered. Everyone's already doing things with ingredients, but they haven't gathered them yet. So turn on the cooking surface. Right. You guys get the idea, right? So what are all the things that they're going to do in order to make their grilled cheese sandwich? So next, we're going to do this in breakout rooms. So hopefully you've been able to download or have access to the handout, because you won't be able to see this once you get into your breakout. Gina, if you can go ahead and put people into breakout rooms, we'll do this for about 4 or 5 minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll see what you came up with. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that was a fun exercise for you. I want to spend a few minutes and get some feedback from you and see what the groups came up with. So at this point, instead of chat, I think it'd be easier to just unmute yourself if you want to share what your group came up with. I'm going to take volunteers.
Yeah, so my
Thanks,
group is me and
Brandon.
Bob. Yeah, you're welcome. For us, for the expectation set, we were saying, you could have a picture of what right looks like for the grilled cheese sandwich. From all the different angles you might need for grilled cheese, which would probably be one. And then for tools, you had, the pan, spatula, butter, just basically everything in the kitchen that was available to you. And then for feedback, we said that the main source of feedback would be from the server. When you put it on the counter to hand it off, they'd be like, that doesn't look right. Redo that. And then for incentives, we were, you'd have like a best grilled cheese of the month award if it's the place is based off grilled cheese sandwiches. And then there's also the reward of job stability that you don't get let go because you can't make grilled cheese sandwiches. But and then customers requesting you being the cook. So I don't know. Did I miss anything else, Bob?
I think you got it all.
Okay, great. Let's hear from another group. Someone else want to tell us what they had, or at least things that might have been different from what Brandon shared?
I didn't hear everything that Brandon said, but we talked about some sort of job aid. So something visual that could be on the wall near the stovetop or the skillet, where that could also kind of set the standard. They know what it's supposed to look like, but then it also serves as maybe like a step-by-step guide for how to do it.
I like that.
So our group also said that your supervisor or trainer was also a tool and resource.
Excellent.
Your coworkers could be a resource. Feedback could be given by your manager and customers. And incentives would be like your paycheck, getting a promotion.
Mhm. Getting a
And
promotion.
mhm.
Great. Anyone else want to share? These are all great. You guys did a great job. Anyone else? All right, then we will move on. Hold on one second, having a little issue here with my cursor. There we go. So let's talk next a little bit about how do we create a performance profile. I want to go through some of the steps that we go through when creating it. So first, we want to identify the business results. At the beginning of the project, I usually talk to stakeholders to identify business results that are important to the organization. That way we can map them to each of the outputs as we build our profiles. This helps with engagement by letting people see how what they contribute, really helps the organization. And next, then I want to identify the output or outputs. If it's existing performance that we're working with, I interview the top performers. But if it's new performance, something that nobody's doing yet, then I interview managers, the leaders, stakeholders, whoever might know about the new system or whatever it is that we're trying to define the performance for. Then next, we define the performance, and that's filling out the top half of that performance profile: business results, standards, tasks, best practices, measures. For this, I interview top performers as well as managers and supervisors, but I always make sure that I validate this information with the manager or supervisor. And one thing you also want to remember is that the same person may not be the exemplar for all work outputs. Then next, we want to identify the influences or what we need to put in place for the performance system. For this, I interview top performers, but also average or even new performers. This way, this helps me identify gaps. And during this step, I'm also able to find easy ways to improve the conditions or performance support system. And I usually, like I mentioned earlier, I give that then to the stakeholders so that they can start implementing some of those interventions. And then finally, we've gathered all the data that we need to create the performance profile. And we consider these working documents. So like I said, there's recommendations that we're going to provide. And as those recommendations or those interventions are created or provided, we will update the performance profile. We might identify best practices, or maybe the processes change. So we're always going to be looking at, keeping these up to date. The other thing is that they can be customized. So we've been using them for, different purposes, because there are several different ways we use it to help prepare, improve, and grow employees in an organization. And what I love about the performance profile is that it really can be an integral part of a talent development strategy or a manager's toolkit. And because it can be used in so many aspects of the employee life cycle, it really helps us create that performance culture that I'm going for, right? No matter where we start in the process. So I want to share a little bit more about how we use this in each of these areas. So for prepare, when we're preparing employees, this might be onboarding, creating a new role, or an employee having to produce a new output within a role. And typically this will involve training as well as defining the new performance. So if we begin by defining the performance using the performance profile, we can then use it to inform the training and the design. So for example, we could use the skills and knowledge section, the tasks, and maybe even who they interact with, what are the best practices, and all of that can help us design better training. And honestly, the way we've been trying to do training now is not just with learning objectives that are knowledge-based or even behavior-based, but learning objectives that are really performance objectives and what they need to produce at the end of the training. And this helps with learning transfer because we're already connecting the learning to what they'll be doing on the job. So now think back to Maggie, our frustrated, overwhelmed manager. This could have helped Maggie with the 2 employees that she onboarded that weren't getting up to speed fast enough. When we improve employee performance, this is usually when we see specific performance issues with an employee or a team, or maybe we want to improve the overall performance of a team or department. For example, in manufacturing, you might focus on a production line that needs improving to reduce waste or improve quality. And here we want to determine the gap between the existing performance and the desired performance. And through an analysis, we can identify ways to close those gaps. And we use the performance profile here to capture that desired performance and identify what needs to be in place to support the exemplary performance. And this is a holistic view to determine the root cause so that we're providing the correct solution, not just picking what might seem to be the easiest, such as training or updating process documentation. Thinking back again to Maggie, this could help with her employees that weren't performing to their potential and also that employee who was making the costly mistakes. And then finally, grow. And this is an area that's new for Radcom in terms of the things that we've been helping clients with coaching and career development programs. We really weren't in the business of doing that, but now that we have this performance framework that we can use and really clearly define the performance, it's really helped with some of these career path programs. So managers, employees can use the profile to select outputs to work on to help them, an employee, get to the next phase of their career, and also if they want to just stay in their same position and not necessarily move to another position, they could select outputs that they could learn to kind of expand their expertise. And then finally, the performance profile can actually be used as a coaching tool. I know we've used it internally at Radcom when certain employees are learning a new work output. It's easy, gives you a nice, easy way to set expectations. And even though it seems like a simple document, each of those areas, you can really dive deeply into those and ask a lot of questions to get to more details about the performance and how are they doing in their work. So when we think back to Maggie, this could be the employees that were looking for career development opportunities, and adding accomplishment-based coaching can help with all of her performance issues. So you can see the performance profile is really a versatile tool with many uses that help managers solve many workplace issues. And the result is less frustration and overwhelm. And this is your happy, calm Maggie. She now has a team that's engaged. She has exemplary performers who love their job. She has a system for providing the conditions for employee success. And she solves performance problems quickly and easily. And not only that, she retains her best talent. And this is what we can do with the performance profile. That's what I have for you today. I would love to get your feedback. If you have questions, we can open up for questions now. But thank you so much for your time and your attention and for being here.
Thank you, Therese. That was awesome. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, they can either pop them in chat or you can raise your hand or jump in there depending on what you'd like. We can kind of talk through, and then I will share a little bit about this offer that I mentioned at the beginning for sure. So as we're waiting for questions to come in, if you have, feel free just to jump in. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got a special offer for those who made it here to the end. So this is great. Radcom, where Therese works, wants to help put into practice basically what you've learned today. So this great new tool, the performance profile, what they're offering is $1,000 off of any of their services to be able to help you put this stuff into place, whether that means, exactly putting in and implementing the performance profile itself, or maybe that means evaluating and looking at other performance issues that you may be addressing in your business or organization. So if you go to radcomservices.com/1000, just the number 1000, 1000. So Radcom, RADCOM, services.com/1000. And you can set up a phone call there, a conversation to be able to get that started and get some help in this area or other areas related to performance. So radcomservices.com/1000. Any questions coming through? If we don't, I can go ahead and wrap up. I think you answered some wonderful things. I think that tool is fantastic, and be able to share that as well. Yeah. Awesome. So thanks again for joining us today. As I said at the beginning, we'll be sharing the recording of this, so we appreciate you coming. If you have any questions, Therese has shared her information right there on the screen, and then also you can reach out to us at Improving Performance at Work. You can email improve@improvingperformanceatwork.com, and we'll certainly try to answer and help as much as we can. We appreciate you coming, and we're going to give you 10 minutes back of your day that you weren't expecting. Hopefully you will enjoy that. And thanks again, Therese, for joining us today. And thanks to everybody who participated. Thanks a lot, and hope you got a lot out of it. Thanks.